Darkcast Network. The light shines brightest on our indie podcasts.
Before we begin this week's episode, I'd like to start with a content warning. This podcast includes foul language and includes discussions of violent crimes. Some topics may be triggering and may include depictions of sexual assault, gore, torture, suicidal ideation, or discussions of mental health. Listener discretion is strongly advised. This week, I will be in the background working on some Season 2 greatness. We hope you all enjoyed Episode 1, Season 2 about BTK, even though he's a real, well, I've decided to call him a fecal matter hoagie.
Yeah, so this week I'll be flying solo, talking about other feces sandwich, Wesley Mathews. We are going to be revisiting the Sherin Mathews case that we covered in Season 1. We felt that we wanted to give much more attention to that case. So Courtney will be opening with our missing segment, and then it's just me, y'all.
I'm Courtney Fenner.
And I'm Amanda Cronin. And A Nefarious Nightmare presents Spilled Milk, the murder of Sherin Mathews.
This week's missing person highlight, I'll tell you about Fauna Frey. Fauna Frey is a 45-year-old white female who has been missing since June 29th, 2020. She's from Dexter, Oregon, and was last seen in the Grants Pass area after leaving her home to visit with friends. Her father, John Frey, said he last heard from her on Sunday, June 28th, when she had called him from a hotel phone. According to the source we are listing in our show notes, he said, quote, she had taken the trip as a way to cope with her brother's death, and it's noted that he was surprised to hear that she had picked up a hitchhiker near Wilderville, end quote. It's also noted that he knew that she seemed in total grief about the death of her brother, saying that she mentioned angels and that just wasn't like her to pick up hitchhikers. The hitchhiker was questioned about her whereabouts, but did not have any information. Frey goes missing just 10 days after her brother's passing. It's been noted that her credit card activity had been traced and that she had made a reservation at a hotel in Grants Pass, but never arrived. After booking that stay, her credit card activity was completely ceased. Her 2000 Jeep Cherokee was found September 23, 2020, and it was found in a rural area off of Reuben Mountain Road, which is a few miles past Grace Creek Boat Landing. The vehicle and the area around it was searched, but nothing has shown up. There have been false leads that the family has been given, and they continue on their search. She was last seen wearing either a pink or purple zip-up lightweight jacket, cotton Capri black leggings, a light-colored shirt possibly white, a sports bra and underwear, light-colored sneakers, and Champion brand ankle socks, and only wears glasses when driving at night. She has a tattoo on her lower back. She's described as having light blonde hair and blue eyes, somewhere between 135 to 150 pounds and 5'6". This story seems to go much deeper, being that the family has noticed several people similar in age and description have gone missing in the same area. The family believes that this is a pattern. The family has set up an anonymous tip line at 541-359-5638 and an email address, findfaunafrey@gmail.com, for anyone who has any leads of Fauna's whereabouts. You may also contact Josephine County Sheriff Dave Daniel at his office at 541-474-5117 or on his cell phone at 541-450-0518. And without further ado, here's Amanda talking about the tragic story of 3-year-old Sherin Mathews. I'll see y'all at the end of this. Please enjoy, or well, for lack of a better term, yeah, Amanda worked really, really hard on this, and this case is very deep and very tragic, and especially heartbreaking for everybody. But this is her baby. This case is her baby. So without further ado, here's Amanda dropping some knowledge on all of you.
Today, I will be discussing the murder of Sherin Mathews. We originally covered this case July 26, 2021. It was only our third episode. We are including the original episode as a source, but when you listen to it, you may want to skip ahead a bit because Courtney and I were brand new little podcast babies and wanted to add a ton of banter to our episodes. But before I get into it, here is a clip from her murderer.
Absolutely, yes, sir. First sight.
And regardless of her blessings, this is who you wanted to bring home and adopt.
Yes, sir. I mean, the first time I saw Sherin, it felt like it was my child whom I had lost a long time ago, and finally I found her. It was that kind of a feeling that, oh, finally God gave me my child back to me.
But you understand, trying to reconcile that with what happened in October of 2017, that kind of rings a little hollow. You understand that?
Yes, sir. I completely realized that. Yes.
And if you recall, obviously if you had things to do all over again, what would you have done different?
I keep going over and over again back to that night, and I keep asking myself, why was I being driven by fear? If I had applied common sense.
Sarah Swahidi Kumari was born on July 14th, 2014 in Gaya, India. Soon after her birth, she was abandoned by her mother, who left her in a bush by a train station. She was found and placed in an adoption center in Nalanda. After 2 years in the orphanage, she was adopted by Wesley and Sherin Mathews from Richardson, Texas. On July 18th, 2016, they renamed her Sherin Susan Mathews. Sherin only spoke and understood Hindu, while Wesley and Sherin spoke Malayalam. Sorry, guys. And they also spoke English, which made conversing with Sherin difficult for the family at first, but Sherin eventually started learning their languages. Mostly, they were just trying to teach her English at first. So now to give a little background on Wesley and Sherin Mathews, they had an arranged marriage, which is not uncommon in their culture, and they officially met at her cousin's house after talking on the phone for about a month in the spring of 2005. They dated for about 5 months and got married in July of 2005. They had their first child, a daughter, in December of 2013. I will not be naming her due to her being a minor in this podcast, though. It's mentioned that they had a hard time getting pregnant and decided when their daughter was about a year old to adopt another child from India because they wanted a child that was from the same country as they were. So they started the process, and they had to do a mountain of paperwork, according to Wesley, and they also had to take several classes to be able to even start the process. So one day they got a call that they were matched with a little girl. Wesley went by himself to Nalanda because they could only get one seat in time to go and meet her and make a decision if they wanted to move ahead with the adoption. They apparently only had a 48-hour window that they had to answer if they wanted to go and meet her or move ahead with the adoption or anything like that. And it just made sense for Sherin to stay home with their 1-year-old daughter. So Wesley and his father went to the orphanage to look at Sherin and took pictures and videos of her, and you can see Wesley like snapping his fingers behind her ears and looking at her all over and twisting her, like not like twisting like in a mean way, but like twisting her feet and seeing if she could stand up. And she was also, seen going to other people and playing with the children. Nothing too far off base. Sherin, aside from having been in an orphanage, and having to learn a whole new couple of languages, was otherwise your typical little baby girl. She always had a smile on her face and was a pure joy to those who were in her life. Babita Kumari, who managed the Mother Teresa orphanage and children's home in Nalanda in northern eastern India, took care of Sherin in the orphanage and said that Sherin was a smart child who was always smiling. Kumari also said that the Mathews didn't raise any red flags at the orphanage. They seemed to love her and would actually call her frequently after their first meeting with her. So it was a complete shock to Babita whenever she heard Sherin's outcome and story. I did want to look into the laws in such in India around adoption, and India actually requires quarterly post-placement reports the first year of the adoption, and then 2 reports the second year. The orphanage has since been shut down because of quote-unquote missing paperwork, but 4 reports were sent in like asked for Sherin from the adoption agency. Reports said that she was, quote, adjusting well and seemed to be secure and comfortable in her new surroundings, end quote. According to these assessments, Sherin did seem to have some eating problems. Eating had become more and more challenging for the family. She likes to eat food outside the home, but not food cooked at home, the Mathews had told the agency. So, the agency gave the Mathews some different strategies that could be helpful, and Sherin was in therapy for all these difficulties that she was having with food intake and calorie intake. So, now I will say in the orphanage, Kumari says that Sherin had been eating solid food and drank from a cup fine. Sherin had a slight birth defect when she squinted one of her eyes a little bit more than the other, according to Kumari. Now, if you're wondering if this already seems a little sus, I'm here to tell you that you're not alone in that. So, October 7th, 2017 began like an average October day in North Texas. It was a sunny day with a few lingering clouds. It averaged around 80 degrees and went down to the mid-70s by nightfall. But before the sun ever came up that day, it was already a sad one. Wesley Mathews, Sherin's adopted father, claimed that after his shower, he noticed Sherin was tossing and turning in her crib on the monitor. He said that it was unusual for her to toss and turn, and that she was usually very fast to fall asleep. So he went in and asked her if she was hungry, and she nodded her head yes. So he took her to the kitchen where he made her a fresh bottle of milk. He sat with her in the kitchen table while he was looking at his phone for what work he needed to do the next day. He said he got up and cleaned the house, the floors, and he went back to check on her, and she still had not finished her milk. So she was sitting in the kitchen, and he said, quote unquote, he played the piano for a little while, and then he went to go check on her again, and she still had not finished. So he says that he wasn't sure how much she had to eat or drink that day, but was concerned that she hasn't had enough milk. He said that a feeding therapist recommended that she drink 16 ounces of milk each day. Now, that part is very likely true because as a child into adult toddlerhood, you still have to drink a certain amount of milk. He said that he was terrified that CPS would come if she didn't drink enough milk every day. And the doctor already put in an order for a feeding tube, apparently. I mean, it just never ceases to amaze me that he practically threw a bottle at her, moved on with his life by cleaning, or so he claimed. So right here, we're going to insert a clip of him discussing what happened next and her death.
At some point, I decided to go to the garage because I had just cleaned it out and it was nice and clean. I was walking barefoot in the garage, so it was pretty clean. And I wanted Sherin to be able to take a look at the new lawnmower that I had bought. I'd known that she had a fascination for the lawnmower, so I decided maybe she might be interested in looking at the lawnmower and be able to help finish her milk. So I take Sherin to the garage and I show her the lawnmower and get her comfortable in the garage so that she's able to drink her milk.
And then what happens?
Then a little while later, I get a little sleepy and I'm trying to doze off with my chin on my elbow, and my elbow is pinching my left leg. At that point, I just wake up from my little nap, and I see Sherin standing with her bottle, holding like this with the straw going to her mouth. And I don't see any milk activity. Just I can see the milk staying in the straw, but I don't see her swallowing her milk. And I tell her, Sherin, hurry up and finish your milk. I say that to Sherin.
And what happened next?
It came out much louder than I expected, and it startled her. And immediately she tried to swallow what was in her mouth, and she tried to cry at the same time. She was startled, and so as a result, she started choking and coughing pretty soon because of that choke. And her coughing wouldn't subside. So I picked her up and I rubbed her back, I cupped her back so that her cough would be relieved. But it wasn't subsiding, and I saw that her coughing was getting worse. So I cried out to Mama, I cried out to Mama, and I kept saying, Sherin, come on, it's okay, baby, we can go back inside. But her coughing was getting worse, and at one point I felt that she was just falling backwards, and I had to support her with my right hand, and I felt that I could not control her, so I had to lay her on the floor. I was on my knees, I laid her on the floor just to make sure that she was okay. But her breathing had gotten much more heavier, and I tried to call Mama. I tried to gently shake Sherin so that she would be out of that spell, but nothing was working. And in a matter, I don't know, pretty soon, her head started going in either direction, and her head came to a still.
You understand that the information you're sharing with the ladies and gentlemen of the jury now is different. You're adding more than what you've told the police back in Richardson in late October. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
And what you're saying is what happened, and you did not go into that type of detail back on the 23rd?
Yes, sir.
At some point, does Sherin become lifeless?
Yes, sir. I check her pulse. I check her pulse on her left arm. I try to listen to her pulse. I don't listen. I don't hear anything.
At some point, do you try to perform CPR?
Yes, sir. Immediately, my instincts kick in to perform CPR.
Why in God's green earth did you not pick her up, run inside the house, go into your room where your wife, who is a nurse, is asleep? Why didn't you do that? Based on what I've learned about CPR, my instinct was to provide CPR immediately because I did not want any delays at all, and I did not want to waste any time. I wanted to just start providing CPR so that I could, save some time. The more the time is wasted, then the harder it's to resuscitation to work. Why didn't you pick up a phone and call 911?
Essentially, I wanted to continue doing CPR, sir.
At some point, did you realize that your attempts to conduct CPR failed?
I kept on giving CPR, persisting in it, trying to make sure that some way, fashion or form, CPR would work and my baby would come back to me.
My question was, at some point, did you realize that your efforts failed?
Yes, sir.
When your efforts failed, why didn't you pick up a phone, go into the house, scream, yell, do something?
I was way too shocked by what had happened. I could not
I could not absorb what had happened. I could not believe that, in very quick time, my child had gone from me. And I was just stunned by the whole thing, and I was really paralyzed.
And what did you do?
I just sat there. I prayed to the Lord God. I did not know what to do because intense fear started coming into me, because I knew that if CPR, if CPS would find out, then definitely they are definitely going to come and destroy and demolish my house. And I had not wanted Cindy to come and see.
Autumn's Oddities is a strange and unusual podcast made by the strange and unusual, me, Autumn Gruby. Each week, I'll be taking you through some of the creepiest cases true crime has to offer. It won't only be true crime, I'll also be covering cryptids, haunted places, haunted things, and the true stories that inspired horror movies. Listen every Monday and Friday for new episodes. And remember, if it's creepy and weird, you'll find it here.
We're Malice After Midnight,
a podcast that focuses on true crime.
We want you to feel like you're part of the conversation.
And sometimes we deal with pretty dark subject matter.
But we always manage to have a good time.
She dragged the body into a closet before she bled the body out and cut it into 9 pieces.
9 pieces, okay.
Now the
Christine's
following...
counting arms and legs. There's 4, 2 arms, 2 legs.
I mean, I'm counting.
The head is a piece.
4, 5, cut the body in half. That's 6, 7. There's 2 more pieces. I'm not sure. Maybe she cut the feet. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 9, and the head, and left the body. So hands, feet, legs, arms, head, body.
Shoulders, knees, and toes. Knees and toes. So check us out. We're Malice After Midnight with Tina, Steve, and Christine.
The Oracle Network. After he realizes that she is dead, instead of being a normal human and running for his family, a wife that was a nurse, or a phone call to 911, maybe a neighbor's house, or even a hospital, this dickhole instead disables his wife's location app on her phone, which doesn't even remotely look suspicious at all. And in case you couldn't tell, that was complete sarcasm. He stated that he did this because he didn't want his wife to have to see Sherin like that. That it would just devastate her if she had to see that. After he carried out this little plan, he then wraps her body in a blue trash bag, places her in the back of his car, and drives around until he decides to place her body in a culvert less than a mile away from their house. He also states that he did this so he could, quote, see her from their house, end quote. Y'all, just listen to this next clip.
To the utility room. I wanted a way to take my child's body, and the only thought that came into my mind was to put my child's body in a blue bag. So I got a blue bag and placed my child's body in there.
Mr. Mathews? Your daughter has left us at this point in time. You're saying that you don't want your wife to wake up and encounter Sherin like this because you're afraid Cindy might collapse.
Yes, sir.
So you decide to put your daughter in a blue plastic bag.
Yes, sir.
Then what did you do?
Then I realized that, if I drive around, maybe I can find a place to safely keep her body. So I opened the garage and I opened the rear of our Acura, and I placed my child in the back, and there was some cardboard water crates that we have in the house. We buy gallon water in those crates. So I thought maybe I can take those crates to a dumpster and throw them, so that gives me a place to see where I can place my child's body. So I took those cardboard crates and also I put them in the Acura, and I closed the hatch, I closed the garage door, and I got in the car and started driving.
Did you have a plan on where you were going, or did you just drove around aimlessly?
I had no idea where I was going. All I knew that I wanted to throw those cardboard crates in the dumpster. So I wanted to go by the dumpster first. So while I drive, I was looking at either sides of the railway field, and so I found these trees on the other side of Centennial, and I felt those trees were a good place for my child's body to be resting.
Why not at a hospital? Why not at an ambulance? Why not at an emergency room clinic?
I was not ready to give my child's body. I was not ready to give up on my child for some reason.
What do you mean you're not willing to give up on your daughter? I'm not following you. Please help me with that.
I refused to believe that my child had completely gone from this world. I believe that if I pray hard and strong enough, that God would bring my child back. I believe that the Lord God who brought Lazarus out of the tomb after 4 days can bring my Sherin back to me.
At some point you had to realize that wasn't going to happen.
Yes, sir.
So why didn't you just drive over fire department, police station, emergency room for help?
At that point, I was not thinking along those lines, and I was just being driven by fear of CPS and fear of how Cindy is going to take this piece of news, and the fear of losing my house and my family.
So at some point you come across this culvert,
Yes, sir.
and what happened?
So I see those trees, and I wanted to go by those trees and place my child by the trees, but then I see this culvert, and immediately my heart is going, okay, so that culvert looks very dark. I cannot see anything at all. There is a very likely chance that I can crawl in the culvert with my Sherin, and there's going to be definitely a snake in there. And I was eagerly just hoping and praying that I would be bitten by a snake and I can be there in that culvert with my child. Together we can be in heaven with our Lord.
At some point you
He didn't
decide to
report
leave
her missing for 5 hours. 5 hours doesn't seem like a long time, true, but remember, this is her father, and she's 3 years old. What the hell could be going on if you haven't seen your daughter in 5 hours? And if you are really that concerned, why was she not reported missing? When he did finally report her missing, investigators began to further doubt his version of events after discovering that the family SUV had departed the Mathews household at approximately 4 a.m. the morning Sherin went missing. The SUV returned to the home before 5 a.m. on October 7th, about 3 hours before Sherin's disappearance was reported to law enforcement. He originally told the police that Sherin disappeared after he sent her into the alley out back of their house as a punishment for not drinking her milk. She is a 3-year-old, y'all.
He's not admitted to killing his adoptive daughter, but he does admit he didn't get help to save her when he says she started choking.
Mr. Mathews, come on up to the witness stand.
Wesley Mathews started with an apology to the police who searched tirelessly for his 3-year-old daughter when he knew all along where she was.
I wanted to know that I detest myself.
Mathews walked through that night in October 2017 when he says he was trying to get Sherin to drink her milk, important because she was underweight and he worried CPS would take her away. Mathews ended up yelling at the child.
She tried to swallow what was in her mouth, and she tried to cry at the same time. She was startled.
You would think that this would allude to some sort of immediate sadness or even outrage from the community, but it wasn't immediately obvious as to what has happened. For all anyone knew at this point, Wesley Mathews and his wife were concerned and deeply devastated parents who wanted this baby girl back so bad. And then she was snatched from them by this cruel grip of death. As bystanders, we all likely assumed that this family, this poor family who just lost their precious little girl, suddenly questioning their own lives, whether they would go through with another adoption or not, or God, even whether or not they would want to live. Some of these things are normal in the thought process of a parent, but it's unknown what was actually going on in their head at that moment, except one thought is extremely clear. Wesley did not want to be caught. An Amber Alert was put out for little Sherin Mathews, but was canceled October 9th because there were no leads or information and the police were suspicious. Wesley and Cindy were then detained for questioning. In fact, Wesley was arrested the same day Sherin was reported missing and charged with abandoning or endangering a child. The next day he was arraigned and the judge set his bail at $250,000. He was then released from jail a day later and placed on an electronic ankle monitor, and his passport was surrendered. Now, stories did not line up. There were a lot of suspicions surrounding what was said, and at one point he said he was scared of CPS and that this is why he waited to call the police. Wesley told the cops at another point that he saw coyotes where he left Sherin in the alley when he came back to check on her just 15 minutes later. No big deal. And then this classic line of bullshit. He said that he did laundry so his wife didn't have to see his dirty clothes. Police and neighbors canvassed the area for days. Detectives in Richardson filed at least 30 search warrants related to this case, including many electronics, 5 cell phones, 3 laptops, a tablet, a camera. Remember now, Cindy and Wesley also had a 4-year-old biological daughter during this investigation. She was put into foster care while all this was going on. FBI agents listed 47 items that was seized from the home during this time, including trash bags, a pink blanket, and a pink shirt as well. Detectives took a floor mat from the vehicle, DNA swabbed, and downloaded the information from the USB drive from the Mathews 2013 Acura. They could tell the vehicle was not home during between 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning that Sherin went missing. Sadly, Sherin was found during a search on October 22nd 15 days, that baby was left out there.
Stella is the one that found the body of Sherin Mathews.
This canine handler becoming emotional on the stand, describing the morning in October 2017 when Sherin Mathews' body was found in a culvert half a mile away from her family's Richardson home. Put there, the state contends, by her adoptive father, Wesley Mathews, after he claims she choked while he physically assisted her in drinking milk 2 weeks earlier. The 3-year-old's body so decomposed an internal autopsy could not be performed, the state saying we will never know how Sherin died. The jury will also be shown gruesome photos of that find and will be sequestered. Speech and physical therapists testifying the special needs girl had been improving but noted the Mathews canceled several therapy sessions. Jurors also saw a police body camera of Mathews talking to officers the morning he reported her missing, telling them initially he put Sherin by a tree 5 hours earlier for not drinking her milk when she vanished, explaining they had been trying to help the 21-pound girl gain weight.
Doctors and all the nutritionists here all telling us you're not feeding her, you're not feeding her. You're working overtime to feed her.
They confirmed it was Sherin, though, through dental records provided by Cindy. On November 16th, Cindy turned herself into police. She was charged with abandoning or endangering a child, and her bond was set at $250,000. Because, I know, everybody out there is wondering, why was she arrested, Amanda? Because the night of October 6th, the night before Sherin was tossing and turning, or the night actually Sherin was tossing and turning in her bed, Sherin was left home alone while Wesley and Cindy went out to dinner with their 4-year-old daughter. And according to cell phone records, receipts from the restaurant, they ordered one child's meal, which was confirmed by the waiter. So she's left home for almost 2 hours alone, and they didn't even bring her food home when she apparently loved to eat out. Yet you put all this effort into getting her to drink some milk? I call just fucking bullshit. It's bullshit. One of the lines of bullshit was that Wesley said that Sherin died from choking on milk. However, the medical examiner said it's medically impossible for a child of 3 years old to choke on milk while standing up. Another line of bullshit was fed was Cindy told the doctor that their 4-year-old biological daughter pushed Sherin off the couch, and that's how she broke her elbow. Previously, the autopsy had been looked and questions of abuse has risen due to the fact that Sherin's elbow was broken. Dr. DeKeel, a pediatrician certified in child abuse pediatrics, testified that x-rays revealed multiple fractures in Sherin's arms and legs. And because of the way they healed, she is completely confident that the injuries happened after her adoption. When the doctor reported her findings to Cindy said that she disagreed with the findings and told the pediatrician that a report to CBS would just ruin their weekend. Autopsy confirmed Sherin died of, quote, homicidal violence. An exact cause of death could not be determined due to decompensation from being out in the open elements for 15 days. Charges on Cindy were dropped after the attorney said that there was not enough evidence to proceed with the case against Cindy. She was in jail for 15 months. During this time, family apparently adopted their biological daughter. Wesley, on the other hand, got life for injury to a child by omission. Now, I did read one piece that says that Sherin's death actually changed the way that the Indian government revises its adoptions, but I wasn't able to find too much information into that. But I do want to mention that there has been a law that's been proposed. It would be called Sherin's Law, and it would make it a felony to leave a child at home alone. Right now, it's not. The attorney says in this that the current law really leaves it up to the parents' discretion whether a child is mature enough to be left at home alone. Ages 9, 10, even 12 have been mentioned as minimum age requirement to be left at home alone. So the proposed Sherin's Law would also make it a felony for not reporting a missing child within a few hours. There are other laws from other states in the U.S. that address this, but not Texas.
This case is always going to haunt me. I know it's going to haunt you, though, because this happens so close to you.
Yes, I'm really glad it's being revisited, though. I'm glad to be done with it. Such a sad, terrible, horrific thing to happen to such a sweet little baby girl.
Yeah. And Wesley Mathews is actually garbage. He is a human fucking real moldy tomato in a shit Subway sandwich. So, Amanda, do you have an ending quote?
I do.
Okay.
Of course I do.
All right.
You gotta try your luck at least once a day, because you could be going around lucky all day and not even know it.
Oh, God, this one's a tough one. Batman?
Ooh, close, but no.
Let me see. Pantera.
Ooh, getting colder.
Justin Timberlake.
It is actually Jimmy Dean.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
You know who Jimmy Dean is?
Jimmy Dean? Yes, I do. He makes sausages. So,
yep.
I want to be able to afford his sausages.
Sausage.
Daddy, do you want some sausage? No, I'm kidding.
All right. Also, don't forget to join our Patreon for exclusive bonus content. That blooper reel is really hilarious.
Yeah, it is. Oh, and we do still have that True Crime Podcast Festival in Dallas, August 26th through 28th. Early bird tickets are going fast if they haven't gone already, but it's going to be a blast. Make sure that you go because I want to hug your face.
Me too.
Okay.
So I'll reserve that for you, Court.
Okay.
But I don't like to touch everybody.
Okay.
I'll have hand sanitizer.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Anyways, quit being a dick, Amanda.
Fine. Keep wearing that deodorant, Courtney.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to A Nefarious Nightmare. All research done for this podcast, depending on the episode, is written by Amanda Cronin and Courtney Fenner. Scripting, editing, mastering, and sound design are done by Courtney Fenner. If you would like to visit our links, merch store, or social media, please either go to www.anefariousnightmare.com or to our link tree. That's linktr.ee/A Nefarious Nightmare Podcast. Music used for our intro and exit is by Ghost Stories Incorporated. You may find their music at bandcamp.com. Additional backing music for today's episode was provided by Epidemic Sound. Please consider leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts to help us expand our audience. Thank you very much for listening, and take care.